What's bothering me is that some of these smaller nonprofits are on a decline. And on the flip side, you will notice 90% of fundraising goes to, like, I think top 10% of
Yes.
nonprofits. So when those kinds of statistical trends popped up, that's when I realized that something seems to be wrong here.
Hi, and welcome to the Tech and Tactics podcast. This is a call up conversation on the intersection of technology and causes. We ask experts, stakeholders, managers, and engineers for answers to the biggest questions that are facing those who want to make the world a better place. My name is Vinayak, and I shall be the host of today's discussion. And I'm joined by Augustus Franklin, the CEO of Call Up. Hi, Augustus.
Hey Vinayak, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? So let's get into it. Today, we are here to discuss the corporatization of nonprofits. So, what is the corporatization? Very simple. It is the business of running a corporate like it's a management company, and these sort of management practices are adopted into a nonprofit. Now, this has been a thought that has obviously been at the forefront of Call Up for many, many years now because we do work with like change makers and lots of nonprofits. But Augustus had different ideas about how a nonprofit should actually run and what should happen. So let's get into it. The first thing that we would like to discuss, especially in this, is a concept known as growth and agendas. Our idea is for a nonprofit to grow, it must make funds and it must collect these funds. And once it collects certain funds from certain people, a certain kind of agenda comes in. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this the best way to collect funds? So, Augustus, what do you think? How they're making money and should they keep making it that way?
See, what happens is, like, when you start um, operating at like a corporate level, what happens is not the actual work that you do, but the sense of showing you that the work that they're doing is more important than the actual work.
Hmm.
So that also starts to happen. Okay. So then it's just like, performance for the donors more than change in on the ground. So that kind of change also happens, right? So like nonprofits are, so not, you may not see the actual change that you want when you donate to nonprofits nowadays, and that causes people to lose credibility, trust with the smaller donors, um, and you don't see the impact as well.
So it's interesting the way you say that, when you get money from certain people, then like you start losing the trust of like smaller donations. Do you feel there's a direct connection between like a nonprofit taking large donations from, let's say, one person versus like 100 other people? Does the 100 other people make them more, I don't know, trustworthy necessarily?
So when you take a large donation from a single donor, let's say, right, now you have to perform for that donor and show that you perform for the donor.
Hmm.
And when you take it from 100 people, you have to show impact to all these 100 people. So are you performing for this larger donor, or are you creating impact for a large number of people? That's the trade-off when you consider a large donation versus a, hundreds of small donations.
Okay, and like I suppose I know for a fact that with Call Up, for example, we do work with many nonprofits. So like if you are in a conversation with a nonprofit, and let's say they are just starting to grow now, like they haven't, it's not like they've reached millions of dollars, it's starting out. What is the advice you would give them then? Would you tell them like, hey, don't go for the large donor?
No, I would say first start with your cause. Okay, what is the actual impact that you want to create, and what's the best way to create impact? I mean, certain causes um, cannot work with small donations. Maybe the initial funding requirement is too huge,
Hmm.
but there are a lot of grassroots causes that require you to actually make real change and have a lot of people supporting you. For that, I would say be authentic, talk about the change that you can do, and reach out to people in an authentic fashion, like, help people, like let people volunteer with you maybe, and actually see that you really want to make change, and then ask for donations from those people.
Okay. In these terms of donations, like the reason why we took up this topic is because one day we were having a discussion, and you mentioned that word, which kind of stuck with me, which is that corporatization of nonprofits. It feels like this is something that you have either seen or at least it seems to have affected you. Why did you come up with that concept? Like, why does that bother you?
What's bothering me is that some of these smaller nonprofits and grassroots organizations are on a decline, right? So we have seen, like, statistically, um, the number of donors have declined, right? Statistically, the
Mm,
new age younger people volunteering has been declining, right?
mm.
Um, so there's all these statistical trends which were concerning, and on the flip side, you will notice some of the size of these non-profits have been growing recently, and they probably hold 90%, right? Like 90% of fundraising goes to, like, I think top 10% of
Yes.
non-profits, right? So when those kinds of statistical trends popped up, that's when I realized that something seems to be wrong here. When we started Call Hub, we started Call Hub to be able to give these kind of tools to everybody, right? Like sort of make tools affordable to large number of people. Therefore, they can create change in the world. And the number of people who can do that is becoming more and more constrained by these trends. And so that's when this came to my attention.
Do you think that these tools are going to make a difference? Because I feel like it's fine for you to say that, hey, don't be corporate, but the tools that we sell do help them do larger outreach. So there seems to be a bit of a clash. Like, do you feel they're using the tools wrong, or do you want them to use the tools differently?
I think the tools must be so okay. So when we started Call Hub, there were no tools that were affordable to everybody. Okay, so you buy tools. You have to buy tools by sign an annual contract or like multi-year contract to get access to some of these tools. When we started Call Hub, we said okay, so you can start using a tool for as low as $25. We even reduced that to like $10 now. So
Hmm.
you have the complete access to a suite of tools for just $10, right?
Okay.
And the more you use and more impact that you're going to create, then you can like decide to scale your operations up. So though that was a revolutionary model when we started, and that's when we got the initial set of customers. It's like, okay, um, this is so affordable, I could just start it and see if I can create an impact with this. The alternative for smaller nonprofits is spreadsheets.
Yeah. Just like Excel
It's
sheets.
Excel sheets, and that gets unwieldy really quick, and you
Yeah.
don't have a system to track and manage all of this. So that's when I think so. I mean, we do sell tools, but we sell tools for a starting price of $10. So therefore, now it's accessible to everybody out there, and all you have to do is believe in a cause and act on it, have the agency to make change, and we will give you a set of tools, all the tools necessary to make those changes.
I mean, is that your claim, or at least your push, saying the fact that, hey, it's really cheap, so go out there and make change? Is that like your agenda as such, as a CEO?
So my agenda is to create the largest impact that I can on the world, right? So I see all these people believing in their cause so much and creating impact in the world. I am like 100%. My mission is life is to support them.
Okay. I've also like spoken to many nonprofits. They say that, hey, you know what? You guys are being idealistic because you're selling like one end of it, but then you don't know our difficulty in raising money because we need the money for like volunteers or to pay a staff and stuff like that. Have you spoken to like nonprofits? Or basically, what is your answer to that question? Saying it's very idealistic. This is not how it would work in the real world.
Somebody has to be idealistic here. A non-profit,
That's
so
true.
non-profits have starts with an ideal state of the world that you dream of, right? So I mean, we obviously all dream of an ideal world, but it's probably not true. The practical changes or the statistics that I just quoted, or that the number of donations are decreasing, the number of volunteers, they don't have trust in the nonprofits that are asking money from them. You were getting spammed from emails
Hmm.
and text messages of like large nonprofits sending you text messages and emails almost like on a daily basis asking for funds. Do you trust them? You don't. So you talk to volunteers today. So the whole nonprofit industry is going through this kind of change.
Yeah.
And so how do you build trust, right? So how do you build trust is people actually volunteer for it. Like if I have to contribute to a nonprofit, I don't know if they're genuine. I don't know if they're just performing for me or they're really making change, right? I want to look at people who are making real change, not just giving me a performance of change. How do
Okay.
I do that? How do I do that? I join the nonprofit. I volunteer for them over a weekend, see what they do. Okay. The small things that they do will tell me, or they just like filling up a report so that they can send it to the large donor and show them this nice graph, or are they really interested in making change on the ground? Once
Hmm.
I figure out that they are really interested in making change and they're not performing, then I'm willing to donate my money as well.
Okay, interesting. So you feel like today, like nonprofits should focus more on like attracting volunteers first, and then worry about the money later. Because traditionally, what it has been is like, hey, get a bunch of money, and then you can hire staff, or you can like pay volunteers or something. You want them to like find the volunteers first.
I definitely want to find them to find the volunteers first, because I think you want to get a passionate set of people who believe in the same thing that you do, who are idealistic in nature. Let's form the core team and let's make the change in the world. Then money is just a fuel for it.
Okay.
You don't start with the fuel first. Figure out where you want to go, and do you truly want to go among, even if there are obstacles along the way. Then money is the fuel for it. Okay. If you start with money, I think then you go in like multiple different directions, and then you're performing to get more money. It becomes a cycle by itself, which I think is a sort of incorrect cycle for nonprofits.
It could be, but coming like I'll attach this to something we were speaking about at the very start, which was about accountability. You said that okay, if you've taken money from 100 people, then you have to be show some impact on those 100 people, and that is why it would be more accountable. Do you feel that because a big push for corporatization has been accountability? People are saying, okay, we'll force you to file these financials. The government makes them file financials. We have all these, like you said, Excel sheet that we're maintaining all the money, so this is like keeps you on the straight path. Do you think that because I have a theory personally which feels that the community should feel empowered by your actions, not necessarily like whether you filed your financials correctly? Like, do you think that is the right path to go, where these nonprofits are accountable to the community they serve?
The nonprofit should be accountable to their cause, okay, to their cause and the impact that they can make, but it must be truly the cause and impact. Okay. So the analogy I use is like, I teach my son math. He comes to office to learn mathematics. His objective to learn mathematics is to get marks, but my objective of teaching him mathematics is for him to love math and enjoy it and understand the concepts. So we started off by saying, okay, the way to measure somebody's understanding of math is this, exam format, and we're going to grade them this way. And therefore, if anybody who grades over a particular grade is great at math, which is true to most extent. But then what happens is now you start gaming that system so that you can get whatever your threshold that you have set as the marks without
Hmm.
even understanding mathematics,
True.
right? So what I'm saying is, let's not set arbitrary you know numbers as targets and financials that you have to file as the goal. Let's have the actual impact that you want to create on the ground as the goal. Understand the cause, let's go make a real change in the world, and that must be the focus. Okay, not all these like artificial numbers and performance that you want to try to do.
It is good, but like that's a flat question, right? Are you putting your money where your mouth is in that sense? Like, do you feel because do you feel like call up is helping people do that, or do you want call up, or is that the direction you want call up to take, that it'll help people reach out to these communities this way?
Absolutely. I think CallHub as a company has to create the largest impact that it can with nonprofits and all the organizations that we work with. And our tools have always been this kind of like affordable, make sure it's accessible to everybody from the small players as they scale up. We will continue to do that, and we will continue to build a suite of tools. I think to help people with funds, with fundraising,
Hmm.
help people with their volunteer management and recruiting more people, and although the tools that they will use for actual on-field deployments. So I hope CallHub can be like a single one-stop solution for their end-to-end problems for nonprofits, um, and build it so that they people can have stronger relationships with their donors, stronger relationship with their volunteers. So my goal is to create something that people can use to make change.
Okay, and you're telling them that, hey, use Call Hub, but keep in mind, stop chasing the big donors, go out there, find volunteers, and make change. That's what you would like to see them do.
Absolutely.
All right, the last thing that I would like to ask, it's like a bit of a touchy subject, but let's get into it, which is the concept of hegemony. This is especially has to do with American nonprofits because American nonprofits are, to be very honest, one of the best funded in the world. Like, and Americans are some of the most charitable people in the world. Just by statistics, Americans give more money to charity than almost the rest of the world combined. There's a huge amount of charity that Americans do, that Americans perform. American governments also, oh, successive governments, Republican or Democrat, have actually empowered nonprofits and also encouraged them, saying that, hey, we'll give you these tax breaks, we'll do all of that. Now, the idea is that this is a form of soft power, or this is a form of hegemony in the sense that, hey, we are going to make you do things that, whether you like it or not, if you want this, like if you want clean water, maybe you have to drink Coca Cola, something like that. Like, this is the big fear in like among nonprofits, especially when they work at a global scale about the local issues. Now, you're asking like nonprofits to find like volunteers and stuff. Do you feel like these volunteers who may be like, I don't know, from some local town in like Ohio, is that volunteer going to truly work for the local interest? Like that's something that they have to aim for?
No, I think the volunteer should find something first that resonates with them, right? Like, something that you're passionate about, and then find really good organizations that are working for the same cause.
Hmm.
So that match should be probably the first one, right? Like, okay, there's one issue that I'm really passionate about. I don't know, it could be anything. It could be, saving the fishes in the rivers, for instance, that are getting polluted, and look at organizations working to solve that problem, and find the how do you find, let's say you are you're a passionate student in Ohio wanting to make change this way. How do you figure it out? You
Hmm.
would go volunteer your time. So I would like encourage you to like go work with small nonprofits, volunteer your time, and see the changes that they're doing, and are they being real, are they being authentic to that cause. The more authentic you are, then you go work with them, right? So if they're not, you would figure out really quickly that they're not authentic. They just want to fill a spreadsheet,
Hmm.
so that they can send a statistical report to their donors. Um, I would say drop that really quick and
Hmm.
find the next one. That's probably the right way to find a nonprofit that can make change.
So you have a lot of faith in the volunteers. You're like, you guys can figure it out if you like would go and do the job on the ground.
Absolutely. No, it also empowers you, right? So it empowers you to actually do it. It shows that you have agency. Um, I think just sitting behind a computer and donating to cause and feel good about it, I think those kinds of things are gone, and people have, I think, abused it to the maximum. So the right way to do this is actually get on the ground and show the agency that you have.
I mean, it is a good, interesting concept because, like that, I do feel like charity begins with when you're going to actually do something versus like what you said, just sit at home and send $5 to somebody and be like, hey, my job here is done. I don't know if volunteers will actually come out in that many numbers, but then it has been also true that every third house in America is famously has volunteered for some cause. Statistics that kind of is in that favor. Hopefully, they would do it. Um, just before we like wrap up this particular section and this call, I would like to ask like, in because you've been running Call Hub for like so many years now, and this seems to be like some sort of new direction for you in which like you want to have these conversations with like nonprofits. Give me like an ideal scenario. Like tomorrow, like you start a like you meet a nonprofit and you're like, hey, you know what? This is the ideal nonprofit. Give me something. Give me an idea that you have.
You asking me for an idea for a non-profit, or you're
I'm
asking me
I'm
like,
asking you, what is your ideal nonprofit? A fictional one, nothing from the real world, but like in your eyes, what would be the ideal nonprofit?
so an ideal non-profit is somebody who's raising money for a particular cause. Let's say we want to clean the Mississippi River, for instance, and therefore, you are organization uh, in Ohio, for instance. So you are believing in this particular cause. That's what you want to start doing. So you want to raise, let's say, 250K in a year, so that you could get this going. So this nonprofit would start by, okay, so whatever they would want to do, right? So put together a plan of how you're going to execute this. How many people do you need? How much funds do you need? So my ideal nonprofit would be somewhere like, between 250K to $1 million in annual revenue that they want to raise. They probably have like, 5, 6 to 10 volunteers, let's say, right, who want to make a change. They, you know, so you want some sort of tools that will help you manage all this, like, how is the money coming from? How do I recruit these volunteers, and how do I actually deploy them? Um, yeah, that's probably an ideal nonprofit.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice deal. I'll tell you what. If the next time we catch up, we find such a non-profit, we'll get them on this podcast as well. So the three of you can discuss together, like whether they're like whether your ideas about how they should run versus what they're seeing kind of actually works out. And let's hope we can have another discussion on that.
Absolutely. That would be really nice. I think we are talking to nonprofits in this kind of a uh, profile, and we are trying to understand the problems in, like, as part of our business as well. But we would love to bring some of them on board to this podcast.
Let's hope we do. Anyway, that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us. And if you enjoyed this podcast or have any suggestions for us, don't forget to mail us at marketing@callup.io. Thank you, Augustus, for joining us. And let's hope we talk to each other soon.
Thanks, Vinayak.
All right. Bye bye.